right, welcome back. We're back for segment 2 of Unconscious Bias on
How can you say that? And tonight we are discussing part 2 of
unconscious bias.
So there's so many problems in this world that we could do a topic every night and we talk about it. So many people have talk shows. Everyone is talking. I think we need more action.
What are you implying?
But this is the whole point. How do you repair something like unconscious bias? In my opinion.
Why do you assume that it needs to be repaired?
Because I feel like our world and our country is divided. Politically, we have half on this side, half on that side.
No, we have 3/4 on the side and probably a quarter on the other.
Whatever, Jonathan. Based on what
Which, by the way, can I say one thing about that?
Sure, go ahead.
You know how we refer to that as the right and the left?
Yes.
Don't you find it ironic how one side is called right and the other one is left? Shouldn't it be right and wrong? If I'm conservative and say on the right and in the right, then the other side can't be right also. They'd have to be wrong. So it's right and wrong.
Yeah,
that's my new terms instead of right and left.
Because you're a conformist, so you want to conform to stereotypes.
No, I just unconformed it. I changed it from right and wrong instead of right and left.
Okay.
So let's refer now to the leftists and the liberals as wrong as opposed to left.
Well, Jonathan, I don't want to change the topic. We're discussing unconscious bias, so I'd like us to stick to the topic on hand.
Well, as you said, political unconscious bias.
Yes. But the reason I referenced it is because I look at our world that during COVID, even though COVID was such a horrible thing, the one part of it that I saw that was good, somehow it kind of brought the world together.
What was so horrible about COVID? I enjoyed those 2 years. Peace and quiet, no traffic on the roads. I had no problem with COVID.
Well, John, for you had fun, but some people lost their loved ones and couldn't say goodbye to them. And I know many of those people. But one of the things about COVID that I was able to experience firsthand, I did 200 television shows in over 30 countries where I interviewed doctors that were treating COVID patients. And that's when I was able to appreciate, although on one hand, it was so disastrous, on another hand, it really brought people together and made the world feel smaller.
That's what I was saying. COVID wasn't all negative. I mean, yes, people died, but 100,000 people a year die in this country from opioid overdoses. 50,000 people a year die from car accidents. So people died during COVID, of course, and it was more, I guess, more of the elderly or vulnerable population. But there were also a lot of good things that came out of COVID. It wasn't all negative from the standpoint of the changes in society. I think a lot of times during COVID, people came together. People united. People spent more time with their family. There was a baby boom during COVID because men and women who were married were home together and spent more time together.
But there were also a lot of divorces because a lot of people realized that they didn't really like.
So you know what I refer to COVID as in many regards? A cleansing process. It cleansed out a lot of the sick. It cleansed out a lot of the unhappily married. And it kind of like went through society in a wave and cleansed. I'm not saying that in a negative way.
That's a good perspective. Okay.
Is it biased unconsciously in some way?
I don't think so. Do you?
Oh, then it was off topic.
No, that's okay. So one of the things that I discovered, because every day, sometimes I did 2 television interviews, and I interviewed doctors in different countries, including China, France, Mexico, Iran, and I asked them, every doctor, this same question. What would you say to someone who is saying that COVID is a conspiracy?
So
can I give the answer?
Well, you can, yes, but okay, go ahead. What was the answer?
To go to work with them.
No, well, that's fair enough.
Because they're losing their co-workers, their loved ones, their family, their friends, and the people in their community. They were dealing with this firsthand. And I asked every doctor that I interviewed in every country that question.
Well, it's
And
sort of like,
each of them gave me the same answer.
I guess, conspiracy theorists who claim COVID wasn't real maybe also had an unconscious bias also against, big media or government or things like that think that it was being played up a lot more extreme than it was. And again, I'm not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but there were certainly aspects of COVID that certainly were questionable, whether it's vaccine related or if it's the amount of people that actually died from COVID versus other things that were categorized as COVID. But there's no question about it. COVID was real. I mean, it was a horrible time for people that were infected. I had COVID. I spent 2 weeks knocked on my ass, the most tired I ever was in my life. I mean, so I was affected by it. I wasn't vaccinated, and I lived through it. My body did what it was designed to do and took care of it. But it was a rough time. And I think actually during that time, what's funny, because you go back to that time and you talk about like unconscious bias, and you talk about stereotypes and things like that, because they're sort of related. When you would go into a store, let's say, and you would look at people, you would look at them and go, before COVID, you would go, oh my God, like that woman's really attractive, or that looks like a nice guy, or whatever, say hello, whatever. During COVID, everyone just kind of insulated themselves, closed themselves in, and looked at everybody as a potential murderer, that they can infect you with something that would kill you. So that there were actually certain biases came into effect, and it wasn't even gender-based or any of the traditional stereotypes. It was like someone would cough, or someone would sneeze, or someone would just make some sort of weird noise, and you'd be like, oh my God, they have COVID, they can kill me, get away from me. And it was a whole change in society where the dynamic that we were never used to. Again, people would be wearing masks. It used to be in the past, the only people that wore masks were people that were insane or crazy or going to rob a bank. Now, if you went into a bank and you weren't wearing a mask, they thought there was something wrong with you. Normally, the bank would be robbed by someone wearing a mask. Now you had to wear a mask in the bank. I mean, society was just turned up on its ass, and all of those biases or unconscious biases that people had were actually flipped around almost to the opposite. And it just goes to show you how in 1 or 2 years, a mindset can really be completely shifted and changed. Mm-hmm. And the dynamic is just totally different. And now, again, fortunately, a lot of that reversed itself, and we're pretty much back to normal, but it still leaves lingering scars.
Yes. The part about COVID that I could never wrap my head around was the toilet paper. What was with the toilet paper and the beans?
Well, the toilet paper, people didn't have toilet paper.
I interviewed a professor in Jamaica, and he told me people were killing each other for the toilet paper.
Well, it's justified. You wipe your ass. What are you supposed to do? Can't use tissues or paper towels in a toilet unless you want to stuff up the pipe. So killing someone, I mean, in under extreme circumstances for a roll of toilet paper is not insane, is it?
So this is where the unconscious bias came in with that. Immediately when all the toilet paper flew off the shelves, in my mind, I knew who bought it.
Who? What are you saying?
I am not.
I only had 637 rolls at the height of my toilet paper collection. But we covered this on a prior podcast. I told you what happened. I said to my wife, a year before COVID, I was stocking up on toilet paper only because it was on sale at CVS and I had coupons, that what if there was a pandemic? Those are the exact words that came out of my mouth. And there hadn't been a pandemic since the 1920s or 1918 or whatever it was. So, I mean, I was loaded with toilet paper. I wasn't one of those creeps that were fighting with people and, getting into brawls over toilet paper. I didn't have to. My house was a lavish palace of toilet paper. Single ply only, Scott's.
That's exactly who I thought hoarded the toilet paper. That's my unconscious bias. I knew that he had 3 people in the neighborhood's share of toilet paper and probably 12 from within the community.
You could have come and wiped your ass at my house like a queen.
You're so bloody cruel.
No shortage.
Jonathan.
It's the truth.
Anyway.
What do you say about, can I say one?
Here's what I think. and tell me what you think about this. I think about these things, I guess I have too much time on my hands.
Probably.
But I was thinking, how do we fix these problems? Because in the workplace, you could address unconscious bias by having
Rules and regulations.
educational programs for your staff, where you could bring this to their attention and bring more awareness to it. I think that's one of the ways that you could help. So you could improve camaraderie and team spirit, team building, productivity. All these things would improve if you could eliminate unconscious bias in all the places where it's prevalent. But
are you viewing unconscious bias as all negative? If they can keep people in their place.
No, I'm not doing it. So I'll let you.
You ever hear the expression, a woman belongs barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen?
Yes, as I was saying, I believe that although that would be great, I know from personal experience that those things that have occurred in our lives at the very tender age, when the foundation was being set, are hardwired in us. So we could go to therapy for 10 years, and while we are seeing that therapist, we work on the issues, and sometimes we can improve the situation. But when it stops and you're back on the street living life, you default to the hardwiring. I know because I speak from experience. However, I believe that if you practice, if you could come from a place of compassion, that's when you could make the most changes in your life.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of compassion, so I don't think I'll be able to make those changes.
And that happens to be a fact. He's not lying. And I know because I deal with him often.
No, I have compassion for children, little children that are very impressionable, and babies, and even kittens. When they're first born, they're so little and cute, but then they become cats. It's like babies. They become people, and they become like full-grown adults. That's when I lose the compassion for them. But as children, I always have a soft spot for the impressionable.
So Jonathan, you said that unconscious bias is not always negative. So why don't you talk about the positive side?
Well, but then I gave the example of barefoot and pregnant, and you gave me a face like, this is your last podcast. So I'm going to retract that statement.
Considering 2 weeks ago, the topic was transgenderism, infiltrating feminism, and I made the point of women expected in previous centuries to stay at home barefoot, like he said, pregnant, washing the dishes.
Well, they can wear slippers. It doesn't have to be barefoot.
Kids running around grabbing the apron strings while the husband goes out in his little suit and his hat and his whatever.
Do you have an apron?
I do.
Can you do the next podcast in an apron?
Sure.
Excellent. Play into the unconscious bias.
What would the topic be?
Maybe you want to wear that apron and get pregnant also. Do you want to get pregnant and wear the apron and not wear shoes? And then you'll really have the full stereotype?
My oven doesn't bake anymore.
Is the warranty expired, or
Yes.
so it's not repairable even?
No.
So what's the point of the oven? Does it do
no
anything?
interest in getting pregnant. Anyway, back to the topic. What do you think about this? I think because we have AI taking over all the jobs from mankind pretty soon. I know that AI is great, but based on what the experts are saying, AI is going to turn around and start killing us. But I think that's when we will eliminate a lot of the unconscious bias, because AI is being perfected and built to perfection.
Very interesting point.
So I think the world will be a better place when AI takes over, but it's being controlled, so it's working for us and not against us.
Can I give you an example of that? I mean, it's not AI necessarily specifically, because that's a whole unknown that we don't know what it's going to do.
No, that's not. That's
AI
not
may
true.
produce a wonderful podcast partner for me at some point, where you're easily just rolled out in your chair and a new one is rolled in.
Out of my show, right? This guy is so delusional. I'm not responsible for that.
Well, the show is called How Can You Say That? It's not called the Conversations with Jennylyn, is it? Was there a title change I wasn't aware of? But listen to this, listen.
Vacate.
All right, just have a seat, relax, don't go anywhere just yet. I'm not ready for
No,
it.
no, the point.
This is practice, it's a practice sake. No, wait.
about this.
I heard you, but I want to give you an example.
Okay.
The example I was going to give you is driverless vehicles. Driverless vehicles are a form of AI because it's the intelligence of the computer system taking over the wheel. Now we talk about how would artificial intelligence in that regard be a positive? Well, these machines that would and sensors and everything that control the vehicle are much less likely when you eliminate human nature from the equation, including drunk driving. Computers don't get drunk. AI doesn't, have 4 beers and decide they could drive home just fine and smash into a car and kill people. The statistics show that if we had driverless vehicles, the rate of car accidents would be drastically reduced. So the point that I'm getting at is that there is a positive aspect to this technology and things like that, where it eliminates a lot of human error. Now you're tying that in with unconscious bias, how it would eliminate, actually it would eliminate
It will
racial,
drama,
correct,
racial prejudice,
correct.
unconscious bias. So in a lot of ways, I think AI will be great. But you're talking about the self-driving cars. Before they put the first one on the street, one of the guys whose company was working.
Oh, here we go, self-promoting again.
He was on my television show, and I invite you to go and watch it, because when he came on the show and talked about it and he left, my crew and I were like, yeah, right, self-driving cars? What if something goes wrong with the computer? Then what?
Much less likely to go wrong with the computer than it is to go wrong with a person. That's the point.
No, I agree. But before I left San Francisco to come here, there were several self-driving cars on the road already.
Well,
Google had some out there, and other companies are.
a lot of companies are working on it. In fact, there's a company.
So, I mean, they're already there. I didn't think I would. I think the guy was on my show 5 or 6 years ago, and I was not expecting to see the car on the road that
Whatever they were working on 5 or 6 years ago is already obsolete. And you have companies like Mobileye and Innoviz that have developed sensors for a package, like this company Innoviz. It's able to sell a package to the OEM for like $500 of sensors and equipment to drive the car and have it do its own thing. So this technology is coming on fast and furious, and things that were even flying cars. They developed a flying car now. So all these things that you saw in the Jetsons, or all these things you thought were impossible, all of a sudden they're coming to fruition.
He's going to get mad at me, but the guy who has a prototype flying car was also on my television
Another
show.
one, of course. Who did you not interview?
Jon Jen is so envious.
Of what?
John, get
Of
over
you?
yourself.
Envious of you?
No, about that I've done all this. You think I'm joking? I'm serious.
I don't think you're joking. I've seen the interviews.
No, you have.
They're
not.
amateurish at best, but I've seen them.
Okay. I'll remain humbly an amateur. But listen, no, all these guys have been on my show talking about this stuff 5, 6 years. Actually, the guy with the flying car, I was doing my Pilates and heard him on the radio. And I ran in my house and Googled him and wrote to him, and fortunately got him on the show to talk about the flying car. But think about the flying car. It's flying among skyscrapers.
Yes, that's what flying cars do. They would fly. Yes.
No, but what I mean is they're not going to fly as high as airplanes.
No, I would assume
And
they
so
would. No, they would assume. I would assume they would fly in lanes of traffic, just
Yes,
above
but
the
what
traffic.
I'm saying, like if you're
Well, we get
flying,
off topic with flying cars, which the topic is unconscious
oh, yeah,
bias.
you're right.
So let me give you an example of something that I just witnessed the other day when I was out shopping at Target. So I don't know if it's unconscious bias or if it's stereotype. There's a lot of
I
overlap.
think they kind of overlap each
Okay,
other.
so then I'll say this because then it's on topic. So I park in the Target parking lot. This parking lot is horrible. Very bad element in this particular Target. So all of a sudden I'm walking towards the store and I see this car pulling out of a space. And I guess the woman wasn't looking, but she was going pretty slow. And there were two women standing in, like, loading their car with a shopping cart. And I said to the woman, I go, oh, you better look out, she's backing up. So she looks up, she happened to be a woman of color, and she starts yelling.
Everybody has color. What the heck does that color?
A dark color, very dark color.
That's what she's
And what does
doing.
she yell? And I quote, I'm gonna beat your ass, bitch. This is what comes out of her mouth. Not, oh, excuse me, you almost ran me over, or I'm sorry, can you please be a little more careful? I'm gonna beat your ass, bitch.
Unconscious bias.
Well, but yeah, I'm pointing this out as an example of unconscious bias.
There's only a black person would say that.
No, I'm saying, what is wrong with society? That this is what we've degraded to now. This is how we react to each other.
So here is my unconscious bias.
Oh, God. If you have to clear your throat before you say it.
In San Francisco, there's a
water?
Walmart.
Oh, wait, I don't share water with people. You have your own water.
Jonathan, take a hike. There's a Walmart where I live, and I hated to go there.
Why?
My unconscious bias was I didn't want to deal with the kind of people I encountered there.
What type?
And they weren't black, they were all types.
What about them was scaring you?
They were intimidating.
Why? Were they large?
No, it's just the attitude.
Were they ethnic?
No.
Were they Jews?
They were people. They were all types.
So what was so
of
scary
people.
about them?
I'm not saying that they were scary. I'm saying they had that kind of attitude where aggression, a lot of aggression. And I don't like aggression. That's one of my problems with living in New York. I encounter it twice a day, every day on my way to work and from work.
You encountered it on this podcast too. I'm a typical aggressive New Yorker.
I encounter it every time I'm in Jonathan's company. And even if I'm on the phone with him, because he is over the top aggressive. And
do you want to talk to your therapist about this, or is this something that the audience really needs to be a part of?
no, you are full of unconscious bias.
I'm not going to say that I'm not. But like we said, it overlaps a lot with stereotypes. And
so what causes us to have them?
okay, so that's a good question, and I'll give you the answer to that. A lot of unconscious bias, unfortunately, is actually based in reality.
Experience, parents, religion, community.
Yes. But it's based on reality.
For me,
you learn things as you live, and you see, and you observe, and you absorb, and you process these things into your unconscious bias. But it's not based on things you're not seeing and things that aren't occurring. They're based on factual reality of facts on the ground. I mean, yes, you could be, excuse me, my lunch is repeating on me. Okay. You could be told things and believe them, and that could formulate opinions. Yes, but I think a much greater percentage of things that are unconsciously exercised by people are things that they've actually witnessed and processed and absorbed and then spit out in their actions and in their thoughts.
I know for me, most of mine have had to do with things I was told growing up, things that happened to me. And most of all,
yes, most of all,
I think a lot of it has to do with certain, okay, I am not prejudiced against anybody's religion or color, but I am very prejudiced against some attitudes.
Mm.
And my unconscious bias has a lot to do with those attitudes.
Like Karens, the white privileged Karens, might you be referring to?
It's not just a white thing. Even some black people have this attitude.
But the Karen is geared towards the white privileged woman in particular.
They don't bother me. I don't interact with them. I choose my company.
Because you are one.
I am not white. I am not privileged.
You're not white?
No.
Oh. You're not privileged?
No.
Oh. Oh, really?
You know what? I'm just a woman. I am a multi-ethnic woman, and I love it. Thank you, God, that you didn't just make me one.
He's going to say, thank you, God, that you didn't just make me white. Is that what you were actually going to say? What? Why are you looking at me like that?
Listen, this is the problem with the world that I struggle with. We have too many boxes. We have too many circles. We have too many categories. Why can't we just be people? people with attitudes. Some people have good attitudes, some people have bad attitudes.
A lot of people.
Some
have bad
people
attitudes.
believe in this religion, some people believe in this religion, some people believe in this government. You know what? I like all of them until they come at me with aggression. And then I just withdraw from them. I just don't interact with them. I just don't deal with them.
Mm.
But I don't judge them. Now, this has not always been true. As I have evolved and aged, and I've done so many television shows for people all around the world, that every single one of them that I have spoken to have helped me to evolve into the woman I am today.
I've devolved. You may have evolved. I went the opposite way. I devolved.
Well, now that
I reinforced my unconscious bias and stereotypes, and I'm pretty steady in my beliefs. I don't think I can change.
well, you will.
Why?
Otherwise, I will break the contract and bring someone in to replace you.
It's unbreakable. You have not. You
Just-
have 8 more episodes with me because we completed 1 and this is number 2. You have 8 more.
Just kidding. I can't replace
Suck it up,
him
woman.
because he's the other person that will bring the gutter element to the show,
The gutter element.
which I think keeps it in balance.
That's a unconscious bias right there, referring to me as the gutter element, as
You-
low end, low class, just downright trash is really what you're saying. Because the only thing that's found in the gutter in that regard is garbage and trash.
You know what, Jonathan? You
I
are
think you're
the
gonna hit me
one
with that.
who told me and who tells me consistently that you're a garbage gutter boy. So if you hear me saying this, it's not because there's an unconscious bias or a judgment. I am merely repeating what I heard from the horse's
Fair
mouth.
and square, or as I usually say, sound and round.
But
Because I don't like to fit into the box of fair and square. I do sound and round.
Jonathan is a great guy. He is one of my best friends in New York, my best male friends. And the reason I like
There you
him,
go again, assuming
is-
my gender is male, but okay.
he is crazy like I am. And most people enjoy the podcast because he brings that edgy element to the show.
But again, I'm on my best behavior on this, being that I can't hide behind my voice anymore. Now I actually have to be seen. It's a lot more intimidating. So this is going to take a little getting used to before I really come into my own. By 2-3 more weeks down the road, I'll be my usual self like I am on our regular podcast, which, by the way, as we said before, are all available on Jenny's website, Jennylyn.com, and conversations with Jennylyn.com, or on YouTube. You search How Can You Say That, Jon and Jen, and then all the episodes will come up. Enjoy them, listen to them so you can get a little bit of a backstory on things we talked about and then get to know us a little bit better.
Well, it is so good to be back. I miss all my Bay Area friends and family and followers. And tonight I'm bringing Jonathan to my website and to the community.
Totally
and
not interested in making new friends at all. I don't want any new friends, but Jenny's happy to get reacquainted with you guys.
No, I'm really happy to share him with you.
I'm happy
This
to
is
be-
just the first episode. I think you'll really enjoy him. Hopefully you've enjoyed tonight. I mean, I think we've gone back and forth with unconscious bias. Unfortunately, it's a part of life, and it's so ingrained in some people that there is nothing that can be done to really change it, except, like I say, hopefully when AI takes over. And the timing is
And we will be back next week with a new
We'll
topic.
be back soon with a new topic.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching, and you have been watching How Can You Say That? The podcast where we are raw and authentic. And we thank you for watching and listening. And we're looking forward to segment 22.
Thank you.
Thank you.